Hey Travis, if you're watching this, go ahead and drop a comment so that I can go ahead and bring you on when it comes time to get the interview started. Yeah, just send me that comment and that way I'll be able to invite you on. And we're gonna cut that. End transmission. All right. Ugh. Let's see what we got going on here. Uh-huh. Yep. Let's go ahead. There. Okay. Huh? Bum. Come here. Yeah. DR. It's a little slow. Invite. This. Done. There we go. Cool. All right. Bum. Bring Travis on camera. Awesome. I just sent you the request, so yeah, you should be able to come on camera now. Get this thing situated. Whew, that light is hot. My hair's a little crazy right now, so y'all can't see up under the hat. Whew, you see it popping out the side. Hey. All right. Yeah, so Trav, I sent you the invite. It should be sending a request for you to come on. And let me know if you need me to resend it. Boom. Let's go. Approve that. No. Approve. Ah. That should work. Boom. Awesome. We got a connection here.
All right.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can. You can hear me?
Wonderful. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Loud and clear.
All right.
All right. All right. So
Thanks for having me, Gordon.
Hey, glad to have you. Glad to finally, sit down and talk with you. You're definitely a person who I've been wanting to talk to for a long time, just for, once again, for my own personal selfish gain. But I feel like this is a conversation that a lot of people can benefit from.
Hopefully.
Especially at a time like this.
Yeah, definitely.
That's why I thought it was very important that I bring you on as one of the front end of the of my interviews, because I think that the time that we're in right now, the information that you have is very, very useful. So without any further ado here, I am proud to initiate the second interview of my series of interviews that I just came up with the title for today. And it's called The One, The Only, because the theme of the interviews are about the uniquities of seemingly everyday ordinary people who we come into contact with. I think that it's very important to highlight the special and unique features of each and every person, because we can learn a lot from each other when we give each other the space to communicate and, just kind of get a little bit of everybody's story. So with that being said, today we have the one, the only Travis Johnson with us, who Hey, definitely. A very popular guy here on this platform, Facebook. If you don't have him as a friend, definitely check him out. He's got plenty of great information about microbial farming and also just the raising of livestock and different animals, um, all kind of things like that. And I know that when I started watching you and following you on Facebook, I had no clue what microbial farming was and still have relatively no clue what it is. So, for starters, what is microbial farming?
Well, microbial farming is farming with microbes, and in a way, everybody who farms with microbes, because the basis of all farming is, the basis of growing any kind of food is soil, and I think people tend to think of soil as just sort of this inert substance, like just the mineral fraction. But the fact is that between those particles, there's a lot of space. So a lot of your soil is space. And in that space, we have gases, we have water, of course, and very crucially, we have a great deal of biomass. And some of that is macroorganisms, insects, arthropods, worms. But the great bulk of it is actually microscopic microbes, and these are very important for a number of reasons. And so the idea with microbial farming is to work with those microbes, to work in tandem with them, because a lot of our conventional agriculture tends to leave soil degraded. And part of restoring it and keeping it in a fertile state is to maintain and restore that community, that ecological community of microbes.
Absolutely. Excellent. So, from what I've seen and from what I've come to understand, to kind of like try and break it down a little bit, it's all about the management of the enrichment and the kind of the like micro environment that is taking place in the soil to create the best, kind of conditions to actually nourish the development of the plants.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, pretty much everybody who's tried to grow anything, they mulch, um, in any kind of a natural ecosystem. You're gonna find, organic matter, detritus on the ground. Just mulch is just simulating that, and so that's really the most important thing, is not to have bare earth. You always want to have the soil covered. So that's the main thing in creating that environment. And then the other part of the process is, once you've established proper home for these little creatures to live and reproduce, you might have to introduce them if your property is, the land that you're working with is severely degraded. um, you might not have very many of those organisms present,
Right.
and you might actually have to culture some and bring them back on your land. So harvesting them from wild places may be another important part of the process.
Absolutely. So you go out there and you catch them like Pokemon.
Yeah, yeah,
And you
absolutely.
that's
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do that, but and can you? It's paused a couple of times. It said paused. Can you still hear me?
yeah, I can still hear you live. It's just every once in a while the connection will fade in and out and everything. But
All right.
once it
And there seems to be, I think there's a little bit of a lag too, but I won't worry about it. I'll just talk.
no, yeah, but we can
Um,
loud and clear.
all right, cool. All right, yeah. So catching them like Pokemon, yeah, that's definitely something that you can do. It's not necessary on all sites, but if you have, as I said, degraded soil, then one thing that you can do is actually go to a wilderness. You want to, visit one that's nearby in the same climate, in the same bioregion, and you can actually collect these microbes from the wild and introduce them to your farm or your garden,
Right.
or even your lawn if you want. And there's a number of ways to do that, which I mean we can go into if you like, or
I want we can touch on that for a little while. I definitely want to get back into that, so we'll put a post onto it because I kind of want to
all right.
bring it a little bit back to the surface a little bit here, because I know, because we're delving into the organism side of it and finding those the species and getting the, as far as the life side of it, right? But I guess what the first thing I wanted to know was, do you use any type of fertilizer, like store bought, should I say, fertilizers in your farm?
No, never,
And would you,
never.
and so you would never recommend that, right? Or would you?
I wouldn't really. There might be cases in which if you had some on hand, um, it might be appropriate to use it in an emergency. You have a plant that has a severe deficiency in a certain nutrient. But no, in general, I think it's really bad practice because what it does basically when you use synthetic fertilizers is they're already in plant available form, and that's the benefit. That's the selling point. Your plants take them up immediately.
Right.
Um, but a lot of that nutrient gets lost. It doesn't stay in your soil, especially if your soil has poor structure. It's going to be washed away by rain. It's going to leach away. It's going to end up in our waterways.
Right.
You see the algal blooms that we've been having here in Florida, in the Gulf states.
For you, right?
That's really a result of fertilizer runoff.
Okay.
And it's also, I mean, it's a very destructive industry. I mean, you have three major three what you might call macronutrients, the three big ones: your NPK, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. And phosphorus mining is one of the most ecologically destructive activities that humans are doing right now, and it's being done in Florida quite a bit. Lots of wild spaces, trees that we need, forests, riparian areas are just being converted into phosphorus mines, and it's not necessary. And moreover, once you've added that stuff, that Miracle Grow, to your garden, the plants will take up what they need. Some of it will wash away, but whatever benefit you get will be very short-lived, and you'll just have to go buy more of the stuff because you're not improving your soil.
Yeah.
You're not building that soil. You're not improving its structure. You're not increasing its biomass. You're basically just addicting your plants to fertilizer.
Yeah. It sounds like a double-edged problem in the fact that, one, you're putting a bandage on, you're like you said, you're basically mainlining these nutrients into the plant itself, instead of actually working on developing the space, so that the soil provides for the plant. And then you have the double environmental impact of the fact of you actually sourcing these fertilizers is destroying the planet that you're trying to grow on. That's
So I definitely recommend against it.
And I've never thought about that, like the environmental impact of actually sourcing the fertilizers. I always think about like the runoff and, like you were saying, the cyanobacteria, how that kills the fish and everything. But no, right then, even sourcing it. So, man, I mean, you guys.
Yeah, look into phosphorus mining, and especially here in Florida, it's a bad thing, man.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's so interesting because with, of course, a little bit of the, with the knowledge and ingenuity, fertilizers are pretty relatively on hand in like every, from what I understand, from like the biomatter, you know what I'm saying? And like composting and things like that, it's pretty relatively I mean, it's literally like a lot of the best foods that we eat are grown in soil that, my limited knowledge have excrement and worms
Yep.
in them. like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what would you say to somebody about that? Because okay, so I was having a conversation. I've had a few conversations with people and like talk to them about how the fact that most of the food, some of the best foods are literally grown in fecal matter, and like that that kind of disturbs some people. But like, what's your take on that? Like, how do you rationalize that? And because you see it so firsthand as like the farmer, I mean, I know I've seen some things. I know you pee in jars, like what I'm saying, things like that. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you get from that and then disassociate from that part of it to when you're serving it up on a dinner plate or something like that?
I don't know. For me, it's just I mean, I don't have to personally,
Right.
I don't have to, distance myself, I mean, the fact is that that's just the cycle of life.
Exactly.
I mean, I just maybe people who just have never, been around it, find it, gross to think that things are grown in manure, but I mean, that's the way of the world, that's just the way nature is. If you go to a forest, or any climax ecosystem, I mean, nobody fertilizes it, nobody fertilizes the woods. It's leaves fall and they decompose. Animals, they urinate, they defecate, they die, and they decompose. Um, that's uh, and I mean, assuming that you rinse your vegetables, I mean, you don't really don't have anything to worry about. It's not gross to use compost or to use manure.
Yeah.
It's it's really not. And it's a good question. Like convincing people. I mean, I've met. I keep chickens. I've offered people eggs and they've turned them down. I'm like, I won't. I won't eat farm fresh eggs. They say, I get my eggs from the grocery store,
It has to be processed
and
at a certain level.
and I was right. I mean, like, why would they think that an industrial poultry plant, like, why would they think that a factory farm is going to be somehow cleaner than what goes on in my place? It's very strange, but I guess it's just out of sight, out of mind, and they just like to get their eggs from a carton and not think about the fact that it came out of a chicken's vent. And it's the same thing. I think that people, they eat vegetables, they don't really think about the soil that it was grown in.
Right.
There's just a disconnect. And like I said, it's a good question, because I mean, it would, when people have that attitude, it's not, I don't know of a sure way to convince them.
Right. And as a vegetarian,
But
I, of course, I've gone through all of these mental battles myself. That's, why I gave up meat, like the thought of just eating flesh and things when I viewed it personally as unnecessary was what made me move away from it. But of course, that means that pretty much everything I eat, like we're saying, the best of it is coming from the dirt. It is my food that I
yeah,
generally grown in soil, and sometimes it'll have soil on it. Sometimes my celery stalks have bugs in them and things like that too. And I'm
yeah,
a person who can easily get that out of my own, like mine. But I know a few people who, that kind of stuff that'll gross them out. The fact that mushrooms come with dirt on them grosses them out worse than their prepackaged steak that is literally a slice of flesh, but like it's neither here nor there. My I think it's very interesting that you brought up the point of it's all about like how they were raised, because I think that upbringing has a lot to do with this, and I kind of wanted to take that time to segue over into actually asking you, for as much as you care to divulge, about your upbringing, because I want to know what creates a person who has the interest and knowledgeability of these aspects and a few other nuances that I know about you that I'll be bringing up a little bit later. But
Okay.
first starters, where were you born and raised?
I was born here in Florida. I was born in Daytona Beach. And but very, very soon after that, we moved to Swanee County,
Okay.
and really, really rural area, like um, deep Florida. I mean, we lived in a little farming community called O'Brien, and that's like maybe 20 minutes from the nearest town, and that town has a population of 400 people. So, I mean, it was very, very rural. And so I was surrounded by wild nature, and it was a little farm that we had. Um, and we farmed in the conventional way. You know, we used pesticides and we used um, synthetic fertilizers, but we also composted.
Right.
And I don't know, from a very young age, I always questioned things. Um, that sounds cliche, but um, I just the thought occurred to me, what I asked rhetorically a while ago, like when I was a very young child, I would just think like, why do we need to do all this stuff to our crops when if you look at the forest over there, the trees are gigantic and everything grows and nobody ever no human manages it at all. It does it on its own. So yeah, so I mean, I do have that background in farming, and then when I was a teenager, the family kind of got out of that. We moved into town, and I got interested in a whole lot of different things. Um, but it was always there. It was it's always a part of me. On the one hand, environmentalism, and on the other hand, my roots on the farm. And I remember, I think it was just a few years ago. I think it was in like 2015 when I was uh, I was in college. I was thinking about doing a postgraduate degree in some nonsense, and I was really frustrated with my courses. I was really frustrated with my music too, because I am also a musician and producer.
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we can talk about that. That would be cool. Um, so I don't know. So at that point in my life, I don't know. I just had this kind of epiphany one day, and I just said, fuck everything I've been doing, and I'm just gonna walk away from all this. And I just started really searching my mind, back through my past, trying to think about, like what are my roots, and I didn't feel, grounded, to use a soil metaphor, I guess. And it just hit me. I needed to get back to the soil. I needed to get back to growing stuff and building my compost piles, and so I University of Oregon State University, and I got a few certificates and that, and I put most of my energy back into running this little mini farm here, and so that was really my focus for about 5 years, and it still is. But now I've kind of found more balance to where I'm, back to doing music and back to doing some other stuff. But so yeah, in a way, I was born into it, but I had to go kind of a convoluted route to find my way back. And and find my way back to doing it in sort of this somewhat unconventional mode that I practice.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, and I've always gotten that sense from you that it was something that was kind of in your upbringing, even though you definitely seem
Yeah,
a person who is more nuanced than a person who is only farm raised. From my because I come from Tampa, but I'm from Odessa, which is a part that's a little bit more country out in the farm.
yeah,
So I know people who pretty much were born and raised on a farm and how they're closed minded. And I know that, like you're saying, you're very big into the music world specifically. From what I've noticed, you seem to be big on noise music or like noise, just noise projects in general. Um,
uh, yeah,
and I think that's really interesting, the juxtaposition of that, like this one side of you that's like so holistic and farm friendly and one with the land and everything, and then you go to this other side that seems to be so like synthesized, and it's all about these electronic noises and things like that.
yeah.
That there is a manual there is a manual nature to it in how you get the equipment and the things that you do to actually create the sounds that you do. But like when did you get into that?
Almost. I was almost as young as when I got into farming. I was a little kid, and when you live way out there in the country like that, like you don't really hear very much music. Um, you have like your parents' record collection,
Exactly.
and like there were no stations. There's no radio stations you could pick up usually, but um, there was we did occasionally we could get television reception, and we could get PBS, and they were rerunning all the episodes of Doctor Who from the 60s and 70s.
Right.
And I don't know if you know Doctor Who, but I don't know if you know that theme song, that opening theme. It was the first electronic music I ever heard,
Wow.
and that blew my mind.
Right.
And then what happened, just really, really shortly after that, um, I mean, it was a long time ago. I was probably like 8 or 10, but it seems to me that this was just months later, maybe it was a couple of years later. I had another like epiphany, which was that um, it's late at night and it's a really clear night, and somehow I'm playing with my radio, and somehow I managed to get a station from Orlando,
Uh-oh.
and they're playing hip hop. They're playing Mona Lisa by Slick Rick. And that absolutely just fucking shattered my mind. And
Yeah.
it it sounded, because to a country boy, I mean, it sounded so futuristic, so alien, and so also just it's beautifully human at the same time.
Mm.
And it's I don't know, but from that moment I was just obsessed with this idea of making music with machines. And I would get I had the radio as part of a boombox, so it had the cassette recorder, the cassette decks, too. And I would just sort of intuitively discovered I didn't really understand how this music was made, either the electronic stuff from the BBC or um, the hip hop. But so I kind of just tried to like feel my own way to it through experimentation. So I would do like these pause pieces, I called them, which just I would take tapes and I'd put them in, one side of the tape deck, and then I'd put a blank in the other one, and I'd hit play and I'd hit record, and then I would just manipulate the pause button so that I could catch little snippets, and then I would just take these little fragments, and just kind of edit them together on the fly to make like these not really collages, montages, just these really weird edit pieces. And at the same time, I started like taking apart electronics. Like my mom would buy me like an electronic keyboard, and I would just take all the screws out and expose the circuit board. And like I figured out, like, just like if I licked my finger and touched the circuits, I could make all these weird squealing noises and shit.
Wow.
And
That
and I didn't know that was like, because there's been experimental music, electronic music for a long time, like, I mean, a lot of it comes out of like the academy, a lot of it is like considered like, it's like an offshoot of like 20th century Western classical music. But
that's high art
I was
you're doing. Yeah.
yeah, but I had no concept of any tradition like that. I had Slick Rick and Doctor Who.
That is
And
that's so raw and fundamental. That's so, as a person who kind of like in my own development now, I started off with a DAW, but I mean, I didn't really go to like YouTube and look up lessons on how to do. I kind of felt my way through it. I totally admire and understand that feeling of just being amazed with these new, like, so many ways that you can manipulate sounds and things, and not really knowing that what you're doing is like, as like, I don't, it's that is the quintessential form of what the true artist, like, you know what I mean? That's like filtered artistry when you're doing that, when you're literally just learning something, experimenting with it, and like you're,
yeah,
manipulating the keyboard in ways that it wasn't even programmed to do, things like that. That's something that for electronic music, and a person who like me, who's big into those fringe genres, that's the coolest thing to hear. Like seeing somebody invent something for the first time is 1,000 times more important to me than hearing somebody, play something amazing that's been done a million times. Of course, perfect,
yeah.
owning your skills are important, but that experimental, that creativity at the front end of it, I think exemplifies something much deeper in humanity, that exploration, in so many different ways. So I think that's really cool. And where can we actually find your music, and how far back can we go? Like,
I didn't catch the last question. It blinked out
oh,
for a second.
yeah. So I was asking, where can, for inquiring minds, where can we actually find your music, and how
Oh,
what's your earliest published works that you have out?
the earliest thing that I put out was a cassette, which I put out in 2008, and it's called it's called How Memory Works. And they came out on this tiny label called Closet Sorcery, and that'll be really hard to find. But you can I mean, everything I've done, everything I've released since 2011 now, is it's really easy to find. It's on Spotify and anywhere you would find shit. And it's under two names. A lot of stuff is just under my name, Travis Johnson.
Right.
And of course there are other Travis Johnsons. It's a common name.
Yeah.
So I'm not the Travis Johnson that has a classical guitar album. Um, but I am the Travis Johnson with the blue check mark on Spotify. And then I've also, since 2014, I've been putting out stuff under the name Date with Death, which is Date with Death, but it's spelled as one word and no capital letters. I had to, give it the eccentric spelling so that, nobody else, took the same name.
Like,
So there was no confusion this time.
no, I like that.
And the projects are a little bit different. The stuff that goes out under my own name, some of it is you could fairly say that it's minimal techno, but a lot of it is really abstract. No tempo, no time signature. It's just just pure sound. It's what you would call noise music. And then Day with Death Project is more going back and exploring the stuff that really inspired me when I was first starting out, and continues to inspire me now. But so it's more beat oriented.
Okay.
It's more based in hip hop, dub.
Oh, I
Um,
have to check that out. I
it's
because I haven't heard that project from you yet, but yeah, I
check it out. You hopefully you'll dig it. But I mean, it's more, it's always it's still experimental. I mean, you know, I still make things, as crazy as I can. But it's it's percussive, and it's within particular meters. It's so it's you can it proves that I actually understand some things, at least about rhythm, if not about harmony.
absolutely.
that's
I
that's my weak point, is harmony. But that's okay, because I mean you can make great beats that are atonal, I think. But
100%. Some of the
yeah.
beats that I've heard don't actually have melodics to them. They would just be like kind of a drum beat, a drum loop, and then some sound effects, and then like some bass added in there. So no, I totally.
Yeah, yeah, I try to keep a lot of space in the mix. I use really heavy bass tones. Sometimes they've got some melody, but a lot of times it's just one repeating sub bass note, and I try to change up the timbre a little bit.
Yeah,
And I try to keep a lot of space in my mix. I'm really like, for me, the greatest. I'm not trying to compare myself or anything, but for me, like, the greatest record ever made is "It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back," and I'm sure you know that one, Public Enemy, 1987. That was another one I was listening to when I was a kid. And the thing about that record, man, is that there is so much sonic detail that you hear something different every time you listen to it. It could be the thousandth time you played it. And yet it's like, at the same time, there is so much space in the mix. Like, none of the sounds are competing. You know what I mean? It's like,
totally.
I think of it, music is very visual to me. It's like, when I listen to that, I think of it as like, almost like as a transparent sound. Like, there are a lot of planes that you can, just hear, see through. It's,
I know exactly.
I don't know if I'm making any
To
sense,
me, to me,
but
it's
but that's something I strive for.
yeah.
That's something I've always kind of held up as an ideal.
As a producer,
I don't know.
you're making total sense to me. Like I totally understand what you're talking about as far as clarity of a sound, because you can have a sound with a million, or I mean, you can have a song with a million sounds in it, and they could all be beautiful sounds, but if they all muddle each other because of the way that their
Yeah,
bounce up against each other, there's no use in throwing
yeah,
the same track. No,
a lot of times they just obscure.
exactly. And then you
So
like gray area of where nothing's really beautiful and nothing is complementing anything. So I totally understand that. I know I've seen that you actually, it seems like you've done quite a bit of collaborative work from what I've noticed. And I was wondering how it is that you actually come into contact with these other artists to collaborate.
well, a lot of them I've known for a really long time. Because I mean, like I said, I started doing this weird music when I was a kid,
Right.
and then a little later, I'm kind of an old dude, so I started. So when I was a kid, when I say I was a kid, I'm talking about like the 1980s.
Hey,
But by the 90s, when I was a teenager, there was already like kind of a network for this sort of stuff. You would trade tapes through the mail with people, and they were like,
wow.
there were magazines like Forced Exposure, and there was something called Records, RRR. It's just records spelled with three R's,
Right.
and they put out noise tapes, and you could just write for this massive catalog. And they would have contact information. So I would just be like, I would just write to people. If I liked their tape, I'd send them my tape. And that was the network at the time. And now it's the internet. And so if I really like somebody's work, I mean, I just approach them and say, you want to collaborate. And I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that they can, tell me I suck, and or that they're too busy. And
Yeah.
well, telling me I suck would be worse. But I mean, the worst thing that can happen is nothing comes of it. So, but I mean, yeah, what I do, I think is deeply collaborative, because it's just I like when you're a producer rather than an instrumentalist. You don't have a band typically, and um, I don't know. I always kind of wanted to have that collaborative aspect. Like I especially, like I really like remixes. I love to send my shit to somebody else and see what they'll do to it. Hear their interpretation on my work. So I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I put out too many remix EPs, but I don't care. I'm going to keep doing it because that's like one of the most fun things for me is just to hear, you know, it's to hear other people do their take on my shit. So, uh, yeah. So nowadays it's just, email, social media. You just reach out. I mean, I've run a few record labels.
Oh,
So that's obviously a great way to meet artists. And so, I mean, can we, if you don't mind, if we can shift the focus to you for just a second, I forgot until like just the other day that you're a producer too.
yeah.
So, cause yeah, I remember when we first, I don't even know how we first got together on Facebook. I don't even know exactly how it happened, but
Right.
I remember the first time I was checking you out. You had links, and I was listening to your stuff, and it was good. And then somehow I just forgot. So yeah, so you do music too. So I'm gonna check that out when we're done with this,
Yeah.
and you can listen to mine, and
Yeah, we can definitely
yeah,
trade that afterwards. And right now I'm making music under Material XYZ. I quit for like I didn't quit, but I didn't even like release anything for like I want to say like 2017 to 2020 essentially. I kind of went through a period where I wasn't actively releasing anything. So
yeah,
that was probably
yeah.
why for a while.
I did the same while I was studying permaculture and the microbes. I didn't release anything between 2016 and 2020.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was afraid I'd be rusty
I,
when I came back, but I'm better. I'm better than I was before.
excellent, excellent.
Like
Check out your new
sometimes you've got to step away for a while. It,
for
it,
sure.
it does you good.
That's a part of the growth too, because you can't like you can't oversaturate yourself in it, and then you kind of become lost in it in the same way as to where too many sounds in a song kind of makes it all great. Being immersed in too many songs and just doing too much with that kind of makes it all seem gray to you. So like I did have to I had
Yeah,
to take a step away to see do how much I love it, like how much I wanted to come back to it. And then once experiencing that passion, I was able to convert that into a million new ideas that I'm working with now. So I totally understand. How are you getting your influences for what you're personally listening to these days? Where do you find good new music?
my friends mostly. Honestly, I mean, it's so crazy now. I mean, um, for a while I worked at a record store,
That's
so
awesome.
that made it easy. I spent 12 years working in a record store, so I had limitless um access to, well, to music, as far as what was physical media we had there in the store. And I mean, now with the internet, I mean, you couldn't possibly keep up with everything. But so mostly I just try to keep up with what my friends are doing, because it's even more fun for me to hear sounds and know the person who made them.
I agree.
So,
I
but I mean, I still read I still read the music press occasionally, and talk to people about what else is going on. Like lately, there's been I've discovered this incredible music that's coming out of Tanzania and Uganda. I don't know if you've heard of this. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the name of the genre right, but it's called Singeli, Singeli, and it's just the craziest shit. It's
never heard of it before.
check it out. It's like it's electronic music, but and it's sample based, but their um their libraries, what they're going to be pulling samples from is totally different
Right.
from and what would get produced in the West, like all this like Tanzanian folk music and shit, and the BPMs are like 180 to 300.
Whoa.
Like it's insane. It's insanely fast.
Yeah.
But it's not like Gabber or some shit where it's really hard and distorted.
Right.
Like the sound design is really mellow. Like the kicks are really soft. So like you can it's like weirdly sedate, even though it's just like like ridiculously fast. And
That actually something.
they're like it's like some of it has MCs, and then some of it just has like screaming vocals. It's wild shit. I can't remember or probably properly pronounce the name of this main label that's releasing this, but I'll send you a message with the name of this label and check out some of the stuff on this label and tell me what you think about it.
Please do.
But I've been listening to a lot of that lately.
Yeah,
and
that sounds really.
I don't know if I'm gonna make a track at 300 BPM myself, but I'm still drawing some inspiration from there. Presently, I'm working on a new album, so.
I've made tracks at 300 BPM because at times when I didn't know the significance of it, and I was really working at half speed, like I was working at half.
Right.
I was working at 150, but I had it up to 300. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like you're like,
yeah,
it's like everything's going by super fast, but I'm like, oh, it makes it much easier to like roll my hi-hats and stuff like that because everything's going so fast. But anyways, no, that is super awesome. That's super awesome. Like, and I really wanted to make sure that we got the chance to highlight the music side of it because I know that you had some very interesting and unique background in music. But I do kind of want to just bring it back to the farming for a little bit because I had a few more questions. So for starters, I guess, which plants are the easiest to grow organically for a person with limited agricultural experience?
It depends partially on where you live, on your climate.
Of course.
But I usually tell people that brassicas are a good place to start. Brassicas are the cabbage family. There's cabbage.
Okay.
Radishes, kale, broccoli, turnips. What's the other big one? Collards, collard greens,
mustard.
Yeah, mustard. That's a brassica. With the particularly radishes, like if you like them, because they're really rewarding because they germinate really fast, like 1 to 3 days, and they're usually only like 21 days to harvest. So I always recommend that as a starter plant.
Wow.
Because it's quick gratification. And that's one thing that, here's the thing, if you haven't gardened before or farmed before, you're almost certainly going to have you're not going to have a good harvest in your first year.
Right. Yeah.
And you're probably not going to have a good harvest in your second year. And people get discouraged in their first or second year. So don't do that. I mean, wait at least until the third year to start, assessing your own abilities, because it's the first year. It's hard for everybody. Um, but the turnips, I mean the radishes, turnips are a little slower growing. The radishes are just like I said, just like almost instant gratification.
Yeah.
So I always tell people to plant radishes, so you know
Excellent.
they can have something that they can harvest soon. And even if everything else fails the first year, you're definitely gonna get some radishes. And like I said, a lot of it is climate dependent. Like here in Florida, here in the South, where we've got, I mean, basically 8 months of summer. Okra does really well because it can tolerate the heat. Um, there's also there's a vegetable that we don't eat very much in America. It's called roselle, Roselle. It's some folks call it the Florida cranberry because it does taste a bit like cranberry, but it's actually a hibiscus closely related to okra, native to West Africa, and that really tolerates our summers here.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful plant, and it's a hibiscus, and you eat the hips, the sepals,
Okay.
and they taste tart like a cranberry. So that's a good one.
That's pretty awesome.
Um,
And that's cool because it's
yeah.
like something that, like you're not gonna find something like that at stores. So it's cool to have like that plant yourself. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
What?
yeah. I try to. I mean, that's a thing, especially in Florida. Um, Florida is like your traditional vegetables that I mean most eaten in North America and Europe. They don't grow in Florida very well
Right.
because it's hot.
Yeah.
So you got to look. I mean, some sweet potatoes, they grow great. Some things do, but you got to look to native plants, really, like things that have grown here, before. Wild things like Biden's alba is something that you can grow. That, I mean, it's native here to Florida. Cannas, persimmons, and then you can also look at other climates that are similar to ours. And some of those climates would be found in West Africa, and some of those would be found in Southeast Asia.
Right.
And you don't want to introduce any like harmful invasive species.
That's what I was gonna ask.
So it's a good idea to do some research on this. But if you look at plants from those areas, you could find new crops that really do well here
I was
in the
gonna
heat.
ask how does one like responsibly go about sourcing, how which plants you can bring over and import and which ones you can't. How do you where would one even go to find the research on things like that?
One good place to go is university. If you live in Florida, anyway, is UFIAS. That's the University of Florida's extension. Um, and anywhere you are in the country, there'll be another county extension that will probably have the same information for your region. And basically, I mean, there are different categories of invasive species, like those that are known to disrupt um, native habitat would be invasive category 1, and then there's 2 which might escape from cultivation but haven't been proven to actually interfere in any kind of negative way with indigenous ecosystems. And then so that information is out there, and that information is also subject to change. I mean, new research comes around. So anytime you're growing something, exotic, I mean, quote unquote exotic, because I mean, most of what we grow isn't native, you know, here anyway. I
Right.
mean,
Exactly. Absolutely.
but it's, you're right. I mean, a lot of our vegetables, are European, but
What's your favorite?
it's, my favorite vegetable.
Yeah, what's your favorite plant to like grow or just to eat? I don't know, to have around.
Man, I don't know. One I really love is the moringa,
What's
which
that?
the moringa is If it, I would go outside and show you the moringas, show everybody the moringas. But it's a tree. It's native to the Himalayan footsteps, which is a similar climate to Florida, a little more arid,
Right.
but close enough that they grow well here. And it's an incredibly fast growing tree. Like this thing will grow 20 feet in a season easily.
20.
And it's sometimes called a horseradish tree because you can eat the root. It tastes like horseradish. It also has these great big pods, which look like drumsticks, as in you would play the drums with, not like a chicken leg. So some folks call it a drumstick tree, and it's used in some Asian cooking, some Thai cooking, and I think it's also been adopted in the Philippines. But it's an amazing tree because it just like grows so pruriently. And like the more you chop it down, the more it grows. And the wood is incredibly lightweight. It's like balsa wood,
Huh.
so it's useful if you need a light wood. And it's you can eat every part of the tree. Well, I mean, you wouldn't want to eat like you wouldn't eat the trunk, but I mean, you can eat the leaves, the flowers, the fruits, the root, the bark. Um, and yeah, like, every single part of the tree is useful. It can be put to immediate human use, and the more you chop it, the more it grows. It's a fantastic plant.
That is really.
So I'm gonna go with moringa. And number two would probably be okra, just because that's probably my favorite food. I just love fried okra.
Oh yeah, I love to make okra.
So,
I make mine really, really
yeah.
spicy with tomatillos and jalapenos,
Oh yeah.
poblanos, and the habanero. Oh, love it,
Yep.
love it. Awesome. And as far as your animals, I know we spend a lot of time on the veggies, but oh, what kind of animals do you raise?
Chickens and ducks, and I've done rabbits. I raised a hog once. I'm not as big on the animal husbandry as I am on the plants. I sort of consider, um, I mean, part of the whole idea of permaculture, I mean, really the main idea in it is that you treat your farm as an ecosystem and everything is integrated. All the different components work together, the plants, the animals, the funguses, the bacteria, everything. And so I find that, I mean, the style that I'm doing is what you might call agroforestry, where it's like it's focused on fruit trees. Um, it's because we live in Florida, because our climax ecosystem is a forest. I'm moving towards trying to make a forest full of edible stuff,
Right,
and
right.
a food forest, as they call it, which is appropriate. And poultry, chickens just integrate really well into a forest system because I mean they originally were forest dwelling birds. They were domesticated from the red jungle fowl. It's an Asian bird that just it's what it does. It lives in the forest floor. Um, so and they just they integrate into the system really well. They'll eat windfall fruit. They'll lightly disturb the topsoil. Not too much more gently than most human processes would, and then of course they manure it. So they just fit very well. On my kind of I have a very very small piece of land that I work, so I couldn't have any well, I couldn't have any hogs running through here. But
But, so,
back when I did have land, I mean, we tried that when I had more land, and that was interesting. But then there's the whole thing about like what are the fate of, what is the fate of these animals? And you know, you're a vegetarian. I'm not a vegetarian,
That's fine.
but I'm mostly vegetarian, and I have I do have very firm, you know, moral convictions about the way that animals should be treated, that non-humans should be treated. I'm I'm don't think it's like unequivocally immoral to eat them, but if you're gonna eat them, you gotta be scrupulous about the way they live and die. To me, it's just it's a sacred thing, and so you know, I like the chickens because, well, you don't have to butcher them. I don't. Mine are not for meat. You know, they lay their eggs, and and they run around in my forest, and that's. I consider it a very, you know, a very fair exchange, symbiotic relationship, and I take good care of them, and you know, so and they take good care of themselves too. Like that's another great thing is, you know, if you have a if you have some wildness in your system, you know, you don't have all your plants in neat rows, and you haven't killed all the insects with insecticides. You know, if you have a real ecological community, then you don't have to spend much on feed because these chickens will forage. There'll be enough stuff on your farm that, you know, your birds will find insects. They will find windfall fruit. They'll eat leaves, eat grass. And also, I mean, to bring it back to the soil life, the soil biota, they'll eat a lot of mycelium. They'll eat a lot of fungus, actually.
Okay. And then
You know,
you're always
so
making you know, little snacks for them and stuff like that. I know you always make, you know, their fermented like chicken feeds and things
yeah,
like that.
yeah, and
And
that goes back to the microbes. That's another aspect of microbial farming is if you are going to do livestock, um, always a good idea to make sure that they have, you know, plenty of those beneficial microbes in their gut, which, you know, they would probably get on their own, you know, from foraging. You know, it's not something you have to do,
right.
but I find that it cuts way down on feed costs. The chickens enjoy it more and they get more out of it if I ferment their feed. So
And then
so that's
and that helps to enrich their like their excrement so that when it goes into the soil it's
yes,
for it. Okay. So
yes,
I love how
yeah,
every step of the way is thoughtful and plays into the next step of farming. Like that type of cycle that of natural farming is, I believe, you know, how it should be. And it should, you know, the system should pretty much regulate itself once you get it up and going.
yeah,
That's super.
yeah. That's the ultimate goal with permaculture is you should be able to design your farm as an ecosystem so that after you put in a few years of hard work, you could walk away from it and it would still produce food on its own. And you come back 20 years later and, you know, presuming it hadn't been, you know, turned into a shopping center, you could go right back to harvesting, you know, and you can relax and make some music or do whatever you want to do. You know, it's really also about saving on labor.
Yes.
You know, saving on costs with, you know, of inputs, but also, you know, saving on labor time,
And
and it works.
how do you feel about like the, I guess for lack of a better term, the like just the underutilization of good like good land, good growing space. Like, you know, all these people who have these like manicured lawns and stuff like that, and really beyond the aesthetic of it, that is like such an underutilization of space. How do you feel about that? Like, don't you think that, I know that they're working on getting making it so that you can have like yard gardens or like yard like food forest type of situations and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I would assume that you're in support of things like that
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
because
I mean, I think that anybody who has the time, you should, and a little bit of land, no matter how much, even if it's just, you know, just a tiny front yard, backyard, porch. If you got the time, grow some food, and yeah, that's a major thing. A lot of HOAs won't let you grow anything in the front yard.
yeah,
You got to have a lawn. But there has been there is some legislature here in Florida in the works, and I don't think HOAs aren't going to be able to do that anymore. And a lot of them are voluntarily changing those bylaws anyway,
right.
because more and more people are getting interested in gardening and backyard, poultry, and just like you pointed, like you said before. I mean, now is the time. I mean, since the beginning of the pandemic, I mean, interest in growing food has skyrocketed. I mean, it's a combination, I think, of concerns about security, but also people, a lot of people suddenly having some free time that they didn't have before. And so it's a timely subject, I think, I mean,
It,
it always has been, but particularly,
no,
you know.
it always has been, and it's sad that it took something like this to actually put it on the forefront
Yeah,
of people's minds. Fortunately, I kind
yeah, I would agree with that.
yeah, fortunately, I've been kind of like
Yeah, definitely.
for these kind of things because okay, so in all honesty and just to be frank, like as a black person in America and things like that, you kind of have to have that backup plan, that emergency for like what if shit
Yeah,
and anyways, what if everything goes crazy and they really kind of decide that they just don't want us to live here anymore or live anymore. So I had dried foods and I do study agriculture already, but when
good.
thing went crazy with the virus and it kind of set everybody into that scarcity mentality, where we're seeing food supply lines, running short and stuff like that because the mail's being attacked, so many things going on at one time. Having that access to your own stash and ability to grow, just the knowledge of it, just knowing how to, what foods you can and can't eat, what you can and can't grow where you are is super duper important right now. So that's why I thought it was very important that you and me get together and have this conversation because just this, I hope that it sparks a couple of people, even a few, just to think about these kind of things, and just a little bit of knowledge going out there and spreading should have mushrooming effects in its own areas to get people on this type of more people are moving towards this as we understand that our health and our livelihood is not in the best interest of those who have been put in charge of governing us. So yeah, I think that it's kind of 2020 has put it in people's face that now is the time for you to take your own health, well-being, and finances, all of these things into your own hands and move forward with that. Um,
Absolutely.
and going on to the financial side of it, I know that before you had a few products like soaps and things like that
Yeah.
you're selling. Do you still do that?
Yes. I've been with the soap. Uh, I've been really bad about keeping my online store stocked. Um, I I need to make more. I need to ramp that up because I was selling some online, which I was surprised, man, that people were willing to pay the shipping, and shipping's only gone up, so I don't know what it would be like now. But I was selling so much of that at just to friends and at farmers markets. Um, I can barely keep up with that, and people really they like the soap.
Uh-oh.
Um,
I was gonna say
my
I don't know if I don't know if you're scared your volume's gonna go up, but if you want to, you should shout it out. Where can they get it?
Right now, nowhere. Not online. I mean, not online, and most of the farmers markets have been closed. But I'm gonna like I said, I'm gonna ramp up production on that, and I'm gonna get. I was doing it through Etsy, the online
Right.
sales, and they changed the terms of service in some ways that I didn't like. But
Okay.
so I'm gonna look for other. uh, options. But one way or another, we're gonna get that back online. Actually, my mother makes most of the soap now.
Oh,
Because I mean, it's something like it's a thing that's been in the family for a long time. And my grandpa made soap,
wow.
my aunt made soap, and then my mother and I started making soap. And fact is that everybody liked her soaps better. I mean, not everybody, but hers were just selling much better because um, I don't like really strong fragrances, and I like more like you might say earthy fragrance. I like wood fragrances like cedar
I
and
love sandalwood.
uh, yeah, sandalwood.
Love
Like,
that.
floral fragrances tend to irritate me. But that's what the main thing that people sell. I mean, that's the main thing that people want to buy. And so my mom actually does more of the soap making than I do now. So
Hey, but you
she's
can find a market.
she's
There's a lot of people who have the sensitive olfactory, receptors, so they need something that's a little bit lighter. So definitely
yeah.
that. But
Yeah, I've always been I've always been sensitive to strong
mm,
scents. So
but
most other people are too. So I make that soap, like I'll make the plain soap because my mother thinks that's boring. So
absolutely.
but so I mean, so it is. I mean, so it's not just me, I mean, it's a family.
And that's awesome.
It's a family endeavor.
Keeping
The entire thing.
keeping things generational like that, I think, are very important. That's something that, I mean, in my family that I'm growing and building here, that's going to be very important. Having something, I was actually thinking about making fragrances like colognes myself. And then also I was kind of thinking about getting into making like small batches of either like wines or maybe craft beer. I know that's just that I feel like that's overdone, and I would like to maybe do something more like wines out of other fruits and things like that. But I think it's important.
Yeah, wine would be more different.
Yeah, it's just really
Yeah,
cool to have something that you can pass on to your children and say this is what the Johnsons do. The Johnson family soap, like that's super awesome. So,
yeah,
and I
definitely.
commend you for carrying that tradition on, because that's super important.
Thank you.
And much business is definitely not a bad problem to have. But so
No,
exactly. So definitely congratulations in all of your endeavors
thank
with
you.
that, and I hope that that expands and at a reasonable pace, because with everything that you do, I'm sure managing that kind of stuff. It's all about finding the balance of your passions and things
Yeah.
like that, and then how to sustain and continue and grow and develop them financially. Because that's the way that we're forced to do it. Excellent. Well, on that note, I think that I've taken an hour of your time, and it's definitely flown by very, very fast. I feel like there's still a million more questions that I could ask you, but just to keep this at a reasonable length for both of us, we'll go ahead and end it here. Man,
Right on.
thank you so much for spending this time with me. This is such a big deal to me personally, and I've already seen in the comments that a lot of people are responding very well to it. Thank you for your
Fantastic.
great wealth of knowledge that you have given to us. It's very important. Once again, can't state enough how important it is that people are paying attention to things like this. So I thank you for that so much, Travis.
Well, I thank you very much for spending the time with me and giving me the platform to put some of these ideas out there. It was really great to talk to you.
Yes, my pleasure getting to know you. Like you said, I don't even remember when we added each other or how we added,
Not,
random or something.
yeah, I don't remember when it happened. A few years back. I don't remember the circumstances,
Well,
but it's been cool.
I can
So,
very fortunate to have known you, however it happened. So
well, likewise. And I'm gonna check out your music tonight, like I said, and I also definitely am looking forward to the next episode. See who you're gonna talk to next.
yes, sir.
I'm sure it'll be interesting.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Travis. And thank you for everybody who's been tuning in with us. Definitely tune in next week. I don't know who the guest is going to be yet. You guys will know as soon as I do. But thank you for everybody who is tuning in here.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great rest of your night, guys.